Okay, I imagine most people here already reached Siman Kuf Samach Aleph, the beginning, the middle, the end maybe. There is a halacha in the beginning of Kuf Samach Aleph. It says, Kol davar osur luvos b'tesefes. That's how the Shulchan Aruch opens. The Ramah says, Kolel the ribis. The rule of ribis is the kol shehu agar notar osur. Anything which is a payment for waiting for the one that you owe the money to, that he's waiting for you to pay him back, is also. The only difference is it the Isa or the Rabbanon. If it's b'derech halva, it's also the Isa, and if it's b'derech mekach, it's avak, which is also the Rabbanon. Alter Rebbe in Sa'if Daled, which you have in your books, says Kolel shel ribis. He expands on this topic of what's the klal godel over here, this big klal of ribis. Kol shenoitel mechaverei eizer sachar, any form of payment. Be'adam tonas achoyv shu chayev loy. Im hu noitel be'adam tonas achoyv bilvad shelay odem mekach hamemkar. If he takes his extra payment because the person is waiting, is extending for him the time of payment, that is ribis shel Torah. It's considered Ribit Torah. Afilu le'pasach le'bishas alvo la'achar kach kishabo le'toivo noisel l'nerech v'lo yazman. Even if he didn't tell me at the time of the loan that you're going to have to give me more if I extend it for you. Sif Daled. Yeah, that's considered Ribit Torah. Regardless, it means that if it's because I'm tonas achoyv and not b'derech mekach u'memkar, even if he did not make a psika in the time of, even if the time of that they made a decision on the loan, there was no discussion, it happened later, it's considered Ribit Torah. The same thing with any other debt that's not born out of alva. The fact is, if someone owes you money and then afterwards you convert it into alva, you charge extra for waiting, it's considered Ribit Deraisa. But if you take it through Mekach Umemkar, it's only avak ribis and it's asur midrabanan. It's mashma from the Alter Rebbe, and this is something which is, you'll see. I saw it in the book of Mishnah Sarav. I also saw it it's also somewhat in the footnotes in what you have over there. That if you take that, the reason why by Mekach Umemkar it's considered avak ribis, this is based on the Sefer Truma and Gedulei Truma, is because when it's b'derech mekach umemkar, you can always say that the price of the product went up. It doesn't look like mamash ribis. B'derech mekach umemkar, if it's a purchase and then afterwards the price went up, no, you could say it's not mamash, it's not ribis. So it's avak ribis. But and it's no, he's charging you more now.
So I'm charging.
Ba'adam tonas mois.
I'm charging you more because you delayed paying until it went up. That's okay.
No, you delayed paying. I bought from you something, and I'm supposed to pay you $1,000. Right? Comes a day I'm supposed to pay you $1,000, and I don't have the money. So I tell you, wait for me a month. So you say, okay, next month $1,100. So if it would be alva that I borrowed from you $1,000. So it's mamash ribis, even though there's no psik in the beginning, because it's be'adam tonas mois. But if it's b'derech mekach umemkar, because I bought from you something for $1,000, so you can always say, well, the extra 100, the price went up. It's b'derech mekach umemkar. Therefore, it's not mamash ribis. It's avak ribis. I was talking about when this is. Yeah. Now, what's mashma from the Alter Rebbe is a big chumrah that if there's no way of saying, even if it's in the form, that there's no way of saying that it's part of the purchase price. It means you don't have that excuse, and it's clear that it's because I'm tonas mois. Then it's also, even if the interaction had some element of mekach umemkar in it. It's just mashma from Alter Rebbe. There are many examples of cases where agar notar comes into play after something began b'oifen hamutar. Something started in a kosher way, and then it turned into agar notar afterwards, and it becomes asur. Shailus if it's agar, if it's also midiraisa, if it's also midirabanan. Yeah, the difference is between the Reis and the Rabbanon, is Yetzi B'dayonim, it's not Yetzi B'dayonim. Could you take it? There is a tshuva from the Tzemach Tzedek that I mentioned to you in the past, Siman Pei Beis and Reish Tzedek Beis, which is the first two you have in your book, which I'm not going to discuss today. Over there is one example of some form of ribis. I'm going to discuss a different form, one that's more interesting because it has element of heter iska in it. That is Siman Pei Zayin. Siman Pei Zayin, and we're going to not only learn that it's in the book. Siman Pei Zayin of the Tzemach Tzedek. It's 1 second, I'll tell you which page it is in.
146.
146, okay, 146. Page 146 in our booklets. To give you a quick background, when you look at the tshuva of the Tzemach Tzedek, you always have to look, in addition to the actual tshuva, you have to look, there's 4 elements to every tshuva of the Tzemach Tzedek. You have the actual tshuva. Yeah, you have the kitzurim which the Tzemach Tzedek wrote along the tshuva. That means at the end of each paragraph, sometimes different ones. Then you have what's called the mafteches, which in the first volume's original print was written by the one who brought it first to print, Chaim Viderevich. Then when the Rebbe printed and he added more things, it came from the Rebbe. And the last print, whatever was added later, came from about 11. Yeah, that's mafteches. And then you also have ha'aris. Some tshuvas, a lot of tshuvas have an artist, which the Rebbe wrote a lot of them. If the Rebbe added them, sometimes you found in Ksav Yad of it. Sometimes you have in there a lot of times additions that the Tzemach Tzedek wrote and crossed out, or things that were written on the side of the tshuva that didn't make it into the goof of the tshuva. And sometimes you get more of a background to what actually happened. So this tshuva, we're going to focus on all elements. You're going to see mafteches, you're going to see tshuva, you're going to see kitzurim, and you're going to see the artists. Each one is important to understand the story. We'll start with the story pretty much based on the ways described in the Mafteches and based on how I understood it from the bulk of the tshuva. We'll use the names. It's a woman and a man. A woman called Sarah. Either she or her shver or somebody related to her gave 1,000 ruble to Avram. B'toiras iske, heter iske. What's the condition? Half and half. So half of the Revach goes to Sarah, and half of the Revach goes to Avram. And they came to Schum Espashlos, like every heter iska. Schum Espashlos means the amount of money you're going to predetermine the amount of profit. Basically, we calculate that this business is going to generate 20% profit. In this case, it was supposed to generate 20% profit. 1,000 ruble is going to generate 200 ruble profit. From that, 100 is going to go to Sarah, and 100 is going to go to Avram. 100 to the person who gave the money, and 100 to the person who received the money. And that's a schum espashos. Schum espashos means that if you don't, comes the end of the time and you don't pay it, you have 2 choices. If you claim those no revachim, you have to take a shvur, and you potter. If you don't want to take a shvur, you pay. If you claim there was a fsedim, you have to bring edim, there was a hafsid. That's a standard heter iska. Avram went and bought 1,000 ruble worth of pishtan, flax, yeah, linen, yeah, and came the time that he has to pay. This woman comes and wants her money. He doesn't have the money. What happened? The price of flax went down. And now, not only he didn't make any money of the pishtan, of the flax, he actually lost money. He's losing money. So he has a stock of pishtan, and he doesn't have what to do with it. He can't sell it because he's going to lose money off it. And he wanted that she should wait until he sells it. And she seems like she was not interested. Not only was she not interested, she also wanted at least some of the money she was supposed to make as a revach. And they made a pshara between them. He's going to give her, he signed the zettel and made a kinyan. He's going to sell, looks like he's going to sell the pishtan right away. He's going to give her 1,000 that he borrowed from her, plus 35 of revach. The reality, there's no revach. 35%. 35 ruble. Instead of 100 ruble. That's what the deal was. I don't know why they agreed on that. She took a loss. The loss, whatever. Less profits. Seems, that's the whole problem. Seems like there was some sort of dentaira, and the Rav, there was two Rabbanim in the town who dealt with it. The Rav of the Sareh was the one who dealt with the case. Seems that he was the Rav of Sareh, and seems that he was the one who wrote to the Tzemach Tzedek on this question, and that he also quoted his Svaras why it's mutter, and the Svaras of the other Rav why it's asur. Additionally, he already had the money. He was the one who passed in it. He received the money, the 1,035 from Avram. It was mushlish by him, and after the psak din that he decided that Avram is right, that Sarah is right, he gave the 1,035. And then he came to the Tzemach Tzedek with a question. He gives a bunch of svaras why it's mutter, because other Rav came against him. So there's 6 se'ifim in this tshuva, and then at the end of this tshuva, after the se'if vav, you have mashakos avrum ma'alosei. Yeah. So now, if you look at the mafteches, the end of the mafteches will tell you that mashakos avrum ma'alosei seems like it's a repetition of the tshuva. It's mashaheshiv b'ktzare, what he responded short to the Rav, and aleph through vav is the lengthy tshuva. When you go to the lengthy tshuva, you also see something interesting. You see the development of the tshuva. It looks like the first 3 or 4 se'ifim were written first. Then the Tzemach Tzedek found the sefer that was mentioned, the Maram Lublin, and then he wrote Hey and Vav. So, and then you also have in the Ha'aris what the Rebbe adds, what the Rebbe quoted from the Ksavya, the line that the Tzemach Tzedek wrote and crossed out. All this together will give you a background. So you have essentially this tshuva is written in 2 parts: aleph through daled, then hey vav. Then there's a mashakos of Ruma Allah, so after Sivav, which seems to be really a summary of the tshuva that was sent to the Rav, not the full thing. And then you have in the others that the Rebbe writes, that the Tzemach Tzedek writes, that I'm sending this only to you, and don't you dare tell the lady in my name what I said. Yeah, just I guess the Tzemach Tzedek really wanted that the Rav should figure out how to deal with this issue, rather than just saying a psak from a Rav. So, the Rebbe gesagt, and you follow it. I wanted the Rav to deal with, fix his mess. Let's go through the Tshuva of the Tzemach Tzedek. I summarized it and I put a few points around it. And obviously you can go through it. It's not much, it's not that complicated. But after I read it to you, then when you learn it afterwards, it'll be easier to follow through. The first thing that Tzemach Tzedek opens with is the first svara of the Rav who asks a question. He brings from this Choshen Mishpatzim and Pei Aleph is a halacha Sif Lamed. Someone who took money from his friend B'teras Iske. Reuven took money from Shimon B'teras Iske. Let's say he took 1,000 ruble B'teras Iske from Shimon, and he's supposed to give him revachim. And every year he gave him a set amount of revachim, whatever, 50 ruble a year, 100 ruble a year, whatever it was, whatever they decided between them. Comes the end of the term of the Iska that he's supposed to pay back the full 1,000 ruble. And he says, there was no revach. And I want that all the money that I gave you, b'teras revach, in the last 3 years of the Iska, 5 years of the Iska, should all be counted towards the keren, not towards the revach. So Shulchan Aruch says if it was given in front of Eidim, or it was given, or he said that it was b'teiras revach, then you cannot consider it like keren. And so therefore, the guy who gave the money gets a full keren in addition. But if he gave it to him stam without saying it's for revach, and it says that also if it was given in front of Eidim, didn't say atem edek on some opinions, then the person takes an oath, the mekabel takes an oath that there was no revachim, and whatever money he gave gets deducted from the revachim. So the Rav want to say, well, over here, really, this person, this Avram, was supposed to take a shvuah, and since he didn't want to take a shvuah, didn't take a shvuah of revachim, the 35 he gave was instead of the shvuah, whatever he gave was given b'teiras revach. That was the deal between them. Yeah, the extra 35, and b'meila it's kosher. So Tzemach says you can't compare it at all to there. Why? Over there, first, simple difference. Over there, what are we talking about? The person comes and gives you $100 a year and tells you this is revach, or doesn't tell you anything. At least you think it's revach. And it's possible that there was revach. Later he comes and says there's no revach. I'm saying at that point, there's no reason for you to believe there's no revach, the receiver. Over here, what are we talking about over here? That when the shtar was written the new shtar was written between Avram and Sarah, Avram said, and he committed himself to give 1,000 plus 35 when he sells. He's going to sell now, and then he's going to give 1,035. So it's clear at that time there's no revach. He still had the whole pishton. What revach did he have? So first thing is, it's clear there's no revach over here. At that point in time, the pishton, even if you want to say the flax was karav l'schar, karav l'hefsed, could have gone up, could have gone down, right? So you can't say that it's b'teiras revach. Even if he gave it with a bestam, even if he said b'teiras revach, even if he wrote on the shtar, I'm giving you 35 al tzrevach, because you can't write it giving ribis, and you made a heter iske, so you write, when you write the shtar, I'm going to give you, you write revach, there was no revach, clear there was no revach. Over here, you can't say it's revach, because it wasn't even sold yet. That's the Tzedek gives you a mistama, what happened in the discussion between them, how they got the number 35. It says, mistama, she came and she said, I want the whole 100. And he probably didn't want to say anything. Mistama didn't want to give anything. And they came to Abshara that he should give 35. And it's obvious that he told her there was no revach at that point. Because if there was revach, why would she agree to 35? And if there was more revach than 35, if there was a revach of 70, which 35, if you say that really the revach is 35, that he's giving her 35 as revach, means that he believed that there was 70 revach, right? If he tells her, I'm giving you 35 revach, that means really there was 70, because he's splitting the revach half and half. So if she believed him that there was revach, and that's why he's giving her 35, it means she believed that there was 70 revach. She should have asked for the whole. He should have given her the whole 70. It's a smaller problem if he gives the full revach to her. It's not such a big problem. The fact that she agreed to only take 35 means obviously she understood that there was no revach whatsoever. And the only reason that he gave those 35 is because this person knew that these people who their business is from making heter iskes are never going to lend the money again. So he's willing to pay a premium for the sake of being able to borrow again. So it's clear that he didn't have in mind that it was revach. Now, just as a side note, this is important to understand, this concept of paying for the sake of being able to borrow again is also a problem. I mean, whichever way you slice it, it's a problem.
Why?
If I'm giving you money because I want you to lend me a certain amount of money, I'm giving you something before.
That's a specific person to lend you.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm doing it for a benefit. Since he only wrote 35, it's clear that he was moed that there was absolutely no revach. And even if he would claim that there was no, and not only there was no revach, it's clear there was also hefsed. So if he would tell her clearly, I'm giving it to you b'teiras revach, and he gave it to her, then maybe he can't come afterwards and say, there was no revach. If he said, but over here, he didn't write that there was a revach. He made a pshara that he's going to give her 35 plus the 1,000 that he owes her. And the main thing is, it's clearly known at that point in time that the pishton, the flax, was never sold yet. And it's clear there was no revach. Maybe there was no hefsed. But if you know the product was not sold, you know for sure there was no revach. No question about it. If the product is still there, there's no revach. You bought $1,000 worth of pishton, there's no revach. In the Kitzur, the Tzemach Tzedek also adds that if you do want to compare it to Siman Pei, so therefore he says you can't compare it to Siman Pei Aleph. So Tzedek adds in the Kitzur, if you did want to compare it to Siman Pei Aleph, what would happen then? Avram would come, make a shvua that there was no revach, bring Edom that there was a hefsed, and not only would Sarah not get the 35, she would have to take a cut of the loss also, because it's Iska. So he tells it off, compared to Siman Pei Aleph is not working. And if you do want to compare it, that woman's going to end up losing. But, so we see from here that a very important point to know, when you make a heter iske with a schum espashtus, and you know clearly this money went to a specific place. You're going to see it again in the Shuvah later. And you know clearly that there was no Revach. Not Shuchat to be any Revach over there. Then it's also to give the Meis Pashas.
What's the purpose of this?
Meis Pashas is to avoid the Shvuah. Because I don't want to come to and give a Shvuah that there was no Revachim, so I give you instead of a Shvuah.
Why did they set up the Meis Pashas to begin with? If the profits are less than that, they're going to split whatever the profit is.
No, because you could make a asking that there's going to be if the reason Meis Pashas is I'm taking the person who's giving the money and the person who's receiving the money taking a little bit of risk, taking a chance. No, taking a little bit of a chance. They're saying one says if it's going to go up, that's the whole part of the trick. That's called a heter Iska, not Iska. A real Iska is we split profits and we split the losses. A heter Iska, below it's a heter, which is it's a shtickle of a trick. It's a trick to allow you to receive a set percentage on your money. So the way it works is that if the profit is less, then and you're able to put and you could prove that those less profits, you take a shvuah, those less profits, you give less.
And
if it's more, then you have two choices. Saying either you could say half and half, but then it's much more profits. The Teveya claims and comes and says, you bought a building for $1 million. I know the building is worth $2 million now, and I only took from you 10%. So you want to play hardball, no problem. 50-50. You gotta give me $500,000, not $100,000. But if you don't want that, then schum is pashus. It goes both ways. It could either be if there's a schum is pashus, it could go both ways. If the stock shoots up or the value shoots up, the person who received the money is making a lot more money than he only is giving 5% back, 10% back.
It protects the leg.
Takes both.
How
Because if there's less revachim, which is usually is, because the way the lenders work is if they will, let's put it this way, if a lender is giving you money at 10%, it means that he knows that on the market he's not going to make more than 7%. That's what he's lending it to you. That he's making it's safer for him to lend in the market. The interest rates are always connected somewhat to the market. If your return is going to be much higher, and you have a very steady return, why should you lend money with for less amount of money? Obviously, you understand that. So the schum is usually the one who ends up winning is the malva. Once in a while, it doesn't work like that. The malva usually ends up making more than 50% of the profit, usually, but it's not us. That's the system I set up.
Only take half of the sum.
Takes a shvuah, yeah. Take a shvuah.
If you made more than 200,000, you still double the.
Oh, he'll be more than happy to take more than.
The Levi doesn't have to give him more than that. That's what you're saying, no?
The Levi doesn't have to give him because they made a schumis pashus. It doesn't have to give him more than the schumis pashus, even if it went up. But he has to give him more. He has to give him more than he has to give him schumis pashus, even if it went down. Not if it was less. Yeah, that's the whole purpose of schumis pashus. We made a deal. And then even if the value, if I don't want to take a shvuah to prove that there was hefsedim, then I'm out. But now there's another svara that the Rav came up with. The svara is based on a tshuva of Maram Lublin. This is the tshuva that the Tzemach Tzedek did not have when he wrote Aleph Beis Gimel Daled. He only had it when he wrote Hey and Vav. And the tshuva over there is talking about when a person, the way they want to compare it over here is, let's look at this business transaction of 1,000 plus 35 differently. There was no payment of extra money for waiting for this. No payment for Amtanas Mos. 35 is not for Amtanas Mos. It's not Revach. 35 is, Avram goes over to Sarah and tells her, hey, you're supposed to make $100, 100 ruble off this deal. The $100 of 100 rubles of the deal are going to materialize when I sell the flax. Now the flax is down. I'm going to buy from you the note. I owe you 100. I'm going to pay you now 35 cents on the dollar. You could buy debts, depending on how bad the economy is. The debts, you could buy debts for 50 cents on the dollar, 30 cents on the dollar. If it's a debt that there's no chance of recovery, you could pay 5 cents on the dollar for it. Depends. Bonds of countries which are failing, you could buy for very cheap. And if it's a strong country, there's different levels. Based on how much chance there is to collect. So he comes and says, listen, I'm going to pay you 35 cents on the dollar. That's it. I'm buying from you. You're right. So he didn't pay her extra. He didn't give her ריוח. He didn't pay her for Amtanas Mos. All he did was he purchased her share in the profits for less. So the same thing as any soicher who buys chayre for the purpose of making money, and then afterwards he thought he's going to make money off it, they ended up losing money off it. So tough luck. If I buy a certain product and then the price drops, I lost out on it. So over here I bought the 35. For me, it was worth it to pay 35 cents on the dollar because I believed that I'm going to be able to make more money off it. Ki'ilu. It's all b'ki'ilu. And then ended up not going bad. So it's a business transaction. I purchased something, ended up losing value, and tough luck. So says no, you can't compare it. He says the only, and this is based on Maran Lulin. So says no. This trick of being able to purchase the profits for a lesser amount only applies when the time that you made this kinyan to purchase the profits, the schayra was in a situation. The flax, let's say, was cut of the schar. There was a viable chance that the schayra is going to make money, and al kapanim was rachig lahefsid, or at least it wasn't going to lose money, and therefore. That means that at the time when they made the kinyan, the value of the pishton was at a certain price that the market value of the pishton was at a certain price. Either you can make a little bit of money of it, or you're definitely not going to lose of it. But if at the time that you made this kinyan to buy the profits, the pishton was low, was below the price, it was cut off the hefset, like in this case, that the price of flax went down. There's no chance to make any profits. So you can't compare it to somebody who buys something with the idea that it's going to make profits. This guy has now 900, he paid 1,000 ruble for pishton. He was planning on making 1,200. The pishton right now is worth only 800, and he's paying 1,035 on it. And there's no chance right now it's on the way down. It's hefsed. It's cut of the hefsed if he sells it now. So over here, that's what Tzedek says, being that at that time when you made the deal to give Sada the 35 ruble, the only reason he gave it to her is because he gave it to her is not because he was buying the profits with the intention of being able to make money off it. No, it's because he knew that he owes 100 ruble based on the shtar. And the only reason he gave the 35 is Tevas Alva. He wanted to make that this Alva should have a longer payment time, Tevas Alva, to make this Alva better. The Alva was supposed to end on Rosh Shiur, and now it ends a little bit later. And the other thing is that even if he and also because if he's not going to pay, they're never going to lend him again. So therefore, Tzemach Tzedek says, this purchase was worth nothing. And then it's full ribis and neshech. Why? Because what was the condition? The condition over here is Avraham has to sell all the pishton at a loss, and to pay, in addition to that, pay the 1,035 of ריוח. It's considered ribis. And whether it's ribis deraisa or avak ribis is going to be discussed soon. But even if it's avak ribis, the kinyan is with garnish alfen. The only way it's going to work is if at the time when they made this condition, Sada tells him, "Hey, I'm going to extend it for you until you're able to sell it, until it goes back up, and then you pay me 35." It's not telling him sell it now and then you're going to make and then pay me 1,035. Tells him, "I'm extending for you for a certain amount of time, so the prices go up." So then. Right now the price is at 800. It went down from 1,000 to 800. She tells him, I know the price went down. No, if she's not going to do that, then it's fine. But if she's getting the money right away, like in this case, it doesn't work. This is what Tzedek says. The Maram Lublin did it doesn't work. Yeah, what she could have done. What she did is not again.
As far as there has to be an option that the price will go up.
Yeah.
If she's demanding the money now, then there's no option for the price.
Right. And being in that, plus the fact that it's a Iska, you could be makel.
No, but even if she gives the option for the money to go up, does it actually have to go up? And let's say on another one, it still didn't go up, and she gets paid.
No, the deal is you're going to pay when the money goes up.
So she's going to technically wait for the 35 forever.
No, not forever. Half a year.
But it never goes back up.
It always goes back up. Yeah, they say that that's the first rule of stock market. Whatever goes down is bound to go up. It's the first law, no? It's Zakman. So we see from here, when you make a heter iska, and the heter iska is clear the schayra, and the schayra right now is in the matzav that is called of the hefsid, the called of the schar, that if the schayra right now is in the matzav it's called of the schar, or at least rochak hefsid, then you're allowed to buy, then the person is allowed to buy the profits from the other person. Why? Because it's called of the schar, or rochak hefsid. At a price lower than what they originally did. But if the schayra now is a cut of a hefsid, and for sure, if it's for sure a hefsid, not only cut of, but it's clearly a hefsid. So even if it makes a kinyan to buy to buy her revach for 35, is still considered ribis, or at least avak ribis. Why? Because the reason why he gave the revach is only because of Antonis Mois, and because he wants that people should lend him again. He wants to make sure that his credit rating stays. Therefore, it's awesome. Right? Now comes the Machzedek and switches sides. Says, okay, now let's deal with what the other Rav said. The other Rav came kicking and screaming that it's a Ribis Deraisa, Ribis Ktsutza. That's Eis Gimel. It's Machzedek says Eis Gimel. Yeah. Okay, it says Ribis Ktsutza. Why did he say it's Ribis Ktsutza Mideraisa? Because when the shtar was signed, the new shtar, he wrote over there, I'm paying you 1,035. He didn't write, I'm paying you 1,035. I'm paying you 1,035. Kolel connected the ribis and the keren together. Yeah, so the Rav says it's a ribis ktsutza.
Can I change everything?
Huh? No, change afterwards. He says it's a ribis ktsutza. So he says, the Machzedek says, no, it's not ribis ktsutza. Why is it not ribis ktsutza? Because there was no Tzitze at the time of Psika's Mois. There was not Tzitza's Mois at the time of Psika.
Because the shtar came later.
Shtar came later. At the time of the Psika, when they gave 1,000, it was purely mutter. It was completely mutter iska, so it started beheter. Only at the time of the payment, being that a loss was created at that point, so then anything which is given more becomes ribis, but it can't be ribis deraisa because there's no tzitza to begin with.
Because this shtar was the second shtar.
Huh?
Yes,
Second shtar. So the Machzedek's words is ein ribis mideraisa klal. That's the Machzedek says. So let's see, where does it fall into the category? So he says maybe it's ribis mucheres. Why is it ribis mucheres? Because we would think it's ribis mucheres. The Machzedek says no, can't say it's ribis mucheres. Why? Because ribis mucheres only applies when you give the ribis after the keren. Over here, you didn't give the ribis after the keren. You give the ribis when the money is still in your hands. It's all in one shot. You're not giving 1,000 plus 35.
You're giving
the ribis together. So it can't be ribis mucheres. So what could it be? So he says, if you look at the Torah and Seif Simon Kuf Samach Vav, you could say that it's not ribis ktsutza, even if it's not ribis mucheres, it could be avak ribis. And from the Beis Yosef and Simon Kuf Samach, you could say that it's ribis ktsutza. Now, just interesting point to point out. You look in the Chuvas that's unrelated to this Chuvah. Look in the Chuvas Tzemach Tzedek. Usually, Tzemach Tzedek will take the position. Will always quote from the Torah and the Beis Yosef. Yeah. Sometimes he'll quote the Ramal, so usually Torah Beis Yosef. Interestingly, I found a Chuvah that's Tzemach Tzedek that discusses something unrelated to this topic. It's about kfiyah on a get when the first get was safek pasel. It's in the back of Piskei Dinim. And over there, the Rav wanted to be matir, and the Tzemach Tzedek says that the fact that you're bringing a raya from the Ramah, yeah, and the Ramah, I couldn't find any mocker for the Ramah, and this is the proof you can't paskin from Kitzurim. Words of the Tzemach Tzedek. He says, I looked in the Torah, I couldn't find a mocker for it. Only like something. So if you can't rely on it, don't paskin from Kitzurim. The Ramah is a Kitzur. Shulchan Aruch is a Kitzur. No, from Torah Beis Yosef. That's a Tzemach Tzedek. So you could see it. The Tshuva in Tzemach Tzedek forgot where it's printed in the Shalos Tshuvos, but it's in the Piskei Dinim of the Mittler Rebbe, the volume that has a Yeridei and Evan together, Piskei Dinim of Tzemach Tzedek. In between the Yeridei has that Tshuva over there. Also, afterwards, it made it into the Tshuvos of Tzemach Tzedek. Good. So, anyways, the Tzemach Tzedek says over here. So, therefore, the 35 that Avraham gave. So, the Tzemach Tzedek says ultimately no. The 35 that Avraham gave was not really purely for Amtanas Mois. He gave, when he gave it to her, he gave it as part of her revach, even though there was no real revach here. And Adarabah, there was a hefsid. And being that he can't claim there's a hefsid unless he brings Eidim, and he takes a shvur, there was no revach. So as long as he cannot come and say, as long as he doesn't do it, you can come and claim from 100 ruble. And therefore, what was given was not really neshech mamish. The chol hayoser ein ze rak avak ribis bilvad. So Tzedek makes it into avak ribis, not into ribis ktsutza. Now, you could be medayek from the Alter Rebbe that we mentioned before, that the way the Alter Rebbe defines it, if there's no way to connect it to a market price, it becomes a problem. That's not really connected to the din of heter iska, but if you want to be medayek from it, you might be able to create a machlekes from the Tzemach Tzedek and Alter Rebbe. We're not going down that. Ois Dalet.
Why can't he consider that it's like L'Harachav
He says, even though it poils L'Harachav Hazman, the way it was given as a payment of her revach. Even though bepoil, we know it's not true. It's not chelka berevach. There was no revach. There was only hefsid. But ultimately, the categorization of this was not that he came and gave her 35 for the purpose of extending the loan. He gave her 35 as part of her revach. So now the Tzemach Tzedek comes and says, so now what? What are we going to do now? Says, even if we say Zavak Rib is not Ribis Ktsutze, ultimately, the Kinyan is not going to help anything. Well, my nafkamina is when you have a Avak Ribis, and the Loive gave it Miritzoinoi from his own free will, he can't come afterwards and ask for it back. You don't take it out, the Malva doesn't have to give it back. But in this case, he was only mischayev in the shtar to give it. And therefore, lav klum hu, it's nothing. And the Kinyan is completely bottle. And even though there's a shtar over here, and the shtar that he's going to give 35, according to Sefer HaTrumas, when you have a shtar with avak ribis, and you have a schayvus to give extra, it's avak ribis, the dayanim have an obligation to delete that line from the shtar and only give what's a keren, not avak ribis. That's the Tzemach Tzedek adds even the further line. Even though the money was already mushlosh in the hands of the Rav, and the Rav gave it to this lady, needed that the noisen shemitzim bechazorem ha'malva l'loive. Even though it was already given to the malva, the din noisen that you have to take it back from the malva and give it to the loive, this extra 35. Why he says if at the time when she gave him the 35 was first. Number one, the Iska was caught of a hefsid. And two, it was clear that the money was given towards his business of Pishtan. So you know that the 1,000 ruble went straight to buying flax, and you know that the flax is hefsid. Then it's caught of loyma that's avak ribis, and since avak ribis will be taken back. Then Tzemach Tzedek says, he should have brought Eidim, that there was a hefsid, and he didn't. So therefore, maybe at the time when you wrote the new shtar, that's not clear that's avak ribis. Yeah, because at the time he wrote the new shtar, he didn't bring any Eidim. He just said there was no revach. Should have brought Eidim, there was a hefsid. And then he wouldn't have to do this. But at that time, he didn't do it. So why do you think it's ribis? At that point, it was revach. And Tzemach Tzedek says, no. Right now, he could come and bring 2 Eidim, and he gloi milsa retroactively. That there was no revach. And there was a hefsid. Saying there was a hefsid. He could come now, claim that there was a hefsid, bring Eidim that there was a hefsid, and retroactively, the whole Kinyan was bottled. Just because he didn't actually bring a den doesn't mean that it was no hefsid. We're not talking about a case when it's years later or time later. We're talking about a case that we know that there was a hefsid. The only thing is, a technicality, he didn't bring the Eidim. So in fact, because he could bring right now Eidim to show you that at the time of that this paper was written, there was a hefsid, therefore the Kinyan doesn't help anything and the money needs to go back. And Tzemach Tzedek tells him that with the fact that you paskin, that being that there's a kinyan, and being that the money was already given at that point, even if he brings Edim now, Sada does not have to return the 35. Ein hapsak emes lefini uzayti. Psak is wrong. Right? Why is that? Because the Edim are going to come now, and the Glay Mil says it's going to reveal that there was a half sedan, and there's no kinyan.
This is assuming that he has Edim?
If the price on the market is there, you could bring any two Edim that no market. You don't have to bring a proof that you're 1,000.
But you have to bring proof that he bought flags.
That, yeah. We were talking about that we knew that it went to the flax.
So that we have proof of.
Yeah, we have. We went directly to the flax. We don't know. I had at one time a case in I don't know what time it was. I had one time a case in the entire where the money went. The check didn't even hit the account of the receiver. It went straight to the lawyer to buy a property. So there's no way you can't even say the one that got mixed into the bank account and the $100,000 and the $500,000 that went really came from that guy's bank account and not from the. Although over here the check was written out to the lawyer, and on the notes it says for the investment in this property. So it's clear that we went for that. But we'll get to that case in different. So he says, so we see if there's an Iska where you know where the money went to, and you know there's a Seder, even if at the time when they made a Pshara, they called it Revach, and he didn't bring any Edim at that point that there was a Hefset. If we know that there was a Hefset, and you could bring Edim, and definitely if right now you could bring Edim that was a Hefset, the whole Kinyan is bottle, and even if the money was already given, it wasn't given Mirtzaynei, it was given to the Rav. It was only given up Psak. You're going to see later that Tzemach Tzedek uses those words. It was given up Psak Adayanim. He didn't give it Mirtzaynei. Therefore, since the Vakribis wasn't given Mirtzaynei, it goes back. Now comes Ois Hey involved, where the Tzemach Tzedek brings the Maram Lublin. He says he found it now. He says, I found it. So the Maram Lublin now, it's Mem Hey Reish Mem Lamed. Yeah? That's the reason why it's important to know is you wouldn't know that's referring to Maram Lublin, because in other Sfarim, Mem Hey Reish Mem Lamed could refer to Maram Al-Ashka, Chuvas. But over here, because you see that he quotes the Chuva 4 Seifim before, so you know it's talking about Maram Lublin. Just side note. Huh? What is it? Yeah. So Tzemach Tzedek said, I didn't have the book, and now it came to my hands. And Tzemach Tzedek says over there, when the Mekabel, now he saw the tshuva, and he says over there, we're back to Maram Lublin, over there he says, really, when the Mekabel bought the Revach for 30, we're talking about 30, not 35, Maram Lublin, when he bought the Revach for a price of 30, you're talking about over there that there was a evaluation of the merchandise, and he thought there's going to be a Revach. And he thought it's going to be much more Revach than he's giving. So when he gave 30, in his mind, he was going to make 100 and 150 on the deal. So for him, it was worth it to pay 30. Elamai, but Kollel ended up failing. So in such a case, the kinyan is valid, and you can't come after and say there was a Seder, because you bought the Revach. And then the kinyan is not bottle. But over here, the moment Avraham wrote that he's giving 35, it was clear, Yodua Sheina Iska Midas LaRevach. It was clear that Iska had no chance of generating a profit at that moment. And it's clear that he knew, and she knew, that there was no chance of generating profits. And why is that? Like you mentioned at the beginning of the tshuva. Because why would Sarah waive the 65 ruble that she was entitled to? She could have made all the 65 ruble. The fact is that she was willing to take 35 is because she knew there's no chance this business deal is making a penny. If she would think that this business deal is able to generate profit, she wouldn't have taken 35 now. The fact that she took 35 now means that she knows that there's no chance this thing is making profit. And she knew that She'ha'esek garua me'oid, a very bad deal. That's the words of the Tzemach Tzedek. Therefore, you can't compare it to the story of the Maram Lublin. And therefore, Tzemach Tzedek says, Im yevarer be'edim achshav. Over here it's different than previously. Tzemach Tzedek says that because he could bring edim. Over here Tzemach Tzedek says, no, you have to bring. Im yevarer be'edim achshav. If he brings now edim, that at the time when this deal, when this 35, when the shtar of 35 was made, the Iska was holding at a loss, so much so that you're going to lose from the keren, and definitely is not going to be any revach. So if so, what he gave her, 35 ruble, is ke'ein ribis avur alvo. It's as if it's ribis for the sake of alvo. And even though it's not ribis ktsutza, it's still only avak ribis. At the end of the day, im hoitzioi behechrech haloive bli retzoyne midaitoi. If the money was taken out of the loiva, these 35 was taken out of him against his will, ki'im al pidayonim, was taken out because the dayan paskin, there was a psak din, it's not midaitoi. Loi osu v'loi klum. This is considered, meaning it's avak ribis, loi osu v'loi klum. It's nothing, it's worthless, the kinyan is worthless, and it's considered avak ribis, and the money has to go back. So Sarah should have to give back the 35 to Avram. And then he continues, he repeats where it says that even though at the time when the shtar was written, the new shtar was written, he didn't actually bring Eidim. So therefore, you could always say, like we said before, that's not really avak ribis, being that now, if it clearly explains that at the time of the kinyan, there was a hefsed, it's clear there's avak ribis, and therefore you can't take it from him, and if you took it from him, you have to give it back. Yeah. Now, like I mentioned before, that Tzemach Tzedek adds, and you see in the Haaretz over there, what the Tzemach Tzedek says, "Kol ze kosaftu marlosi bilvad, u'akosh kiful u'chapel shlo yema shum davar b'shmi af la'atzat sheloi nois na'isqa." Don't say anything even to your side, which is the one that gave the Iscah. Don't say anything in my name. So what do we see from here is a few kolam in heter Iscah, and the reason it's important is at some point you will come across it, and this is something which differentiates Lubavitchers from a lot of other people in the Welt, because there's a Marasham, which I have to find specific to Manamokim, that's clearly fakert when it comes to this, when it comes to Afseidim over here. So Tzedek is Machmer, and you could say it Alter is even more Machmer, that we could discuss about Tzedek, that if you have a heter Iscah, and it's clear that there's no Revachim now, then giving Schum Espashus, even for sure, if you gave the full schum espashus, if you gave less than a schum espashus, and you could prove with Adam that there was no revach, the money, and you gave it because you had no choice. The money, you didn't give it mitzayin chatoiv. It's avak ribis. Now Tzemach Tzedek is probably avak ribis. Tzemach Tzedek brings a svara that it might be ribis gemura, but Tzemach Tzedek doesn't hold it. But he brings such a svara, but it's for sure avak ribis. Therefore, that money goes back. If there is a chance, if the only way it could work, even by a heter Iscah is not a free-for-all. You can't come and say, make a heter Iscah with whatever number possible. And you're going to get in the Alter Rebbe, you're going to see in the mems over there where it says about the Iscahs, if the money is used for personal or whatever it is, doesn't go to business, you'll see that the heter Iscah has to have some semblance of real business deal, that it's possible to make money off it. And if you have all the money locked up in the deal, and you could prove that the money went straight to this deal and not to anything else, then you're in big trouble if you use that money for, and you're in big trouble, and then the business deal goes sour, you don't really have, you can't really come and claim afterwards that you want the schum espashus.